without, the systems that are built are built by either us or by IHS. And their systems are only meant for domestic needs, as far as so they don't really guarantee any fire suppression system. So the way we've been handling it is we've been putting reserve tanks on the site, so that then we fill those tanks, and that's our fire suppression system for the units that are in there. So the scope of work does include a hydrology test, and they're going to be looking at the whole system to make sure that we have that capacity.
Okay, thanks for the response. You can continue.
Okay, so the Gutchkai is the same thing. A lot of it has to do with the pre-planning activities, establishing right-of-ways and getting release of funds and Gutchkai, the existing water system was not adequate, so we had to tap into another region that was about half a mile away. So we established a right-of-way line. And now we will now have the adequate system to add additional units within our Gutchkai site. And Mini Farms is a street project that we're doing out there. That one we're just going to be doing some street mitigations. We're going to be repaving some roads that are within the subdivision. Same thing with St. Michael's. We'll be repairing some drainage problems out there. The only problem is that we can fix our end of it, but the real problem with St. Michael's is outside our site control area, and we are still trying to work. Hopefully that when we start work, it usually kicks off interest from other entities so that they can start to help mitigate the problem as a whole. So that's the street over there by Peterson Dawes' house. That's the procurement projects that are ongoing right now. Next one is the department highlights. We have maintenance division, their exterior.
There's a question, Commissioner Lee.
I don't see Hulk on here. What's the project? What's the status of that? You're supposed to have a meeting this month early on with a bunch of parties. What have you guys decided upon?
We met with the legal counsel. We did the inspection. And legal counsel, we asked for several items. We asked for the RFIs because they're structural. Another part of the RFIs, we asked for the costs and changes from the architect, which submitted. Mr. Robert's been saying,
No,
because
Bluestone. Talking about Bluestone.
Bluestone, I thought he was hold on to it.
No, stop.
With Bluestone, that's something that I requested overall cost. And getting a couple of different feedbacks or utilities, 7 million, 10 million. Those are some of the things that, if we're going to invest 11 million, whatever, is it really going to be feasible to build home? Because so far, I think we put the 7 million that they're saying for the power line plus the 11 million, to build 30 units, it won't be feasible. And that's the reports, the cost that I've been asking to develop, request NQA to give us firm fixed costs on that. Because the firm fixed costs on there is going to give us a driving tool. Is it feasible to really move with this? Because that's what, if we're gonna notify HUD that this is not a feasible project, we gotta have those costs in hand. So I request that through staff, which they requested through HUA. That's the struggle point, because they're asking us to run a line, understand correct me if I'm wrong, run the line from the substation along the KV, right away, all the way back to the subdivision, roughly about 80 miles. And then the water line that's running through, they're asking us to upgrade that water line. So the cost of that, we've been requesting from QA. I'm not sure if we put a deadline on that, but I can relate to Mr. Franklin. But those are what I need to make that last determination. feasibility.
Commissioner Lee?
You know, when I came out here about 2.5 years ago, it effectively stopped Bluestone. And what you've just said, we've had those same questions since that time period. And you've been sitting as the interim CEO since end of April, and we still have those questions. And there's not been any progress at all in my mind about getting those questions answered. When I look through these blue pages here at everything that planning's involved with, we still have those questions. We've got monies that were designated back in 2016, and then planning says they don't have the land resolutions they need from the chapters. And this is the same report, basically, over the last year. Now planning throws in there also that due to the retirement, they've got problems in getting planning activities done. I don't see a whole lot of progress taking place. And I think that some of these things, there needs to be a plan in place. If the chapters don't get their land resolutions done so we can proceed, we need to kill the project. But planning also needs to look at other projects that have to go in the pipeline as well. I'd like to see some progress here on project developments and for answers to questions that we need answered so we can make a decision on whether to pay back the Bluestone or what we're going to be doing with it. Because there's supposed to have been a meeting early this month with a bunch of parties, according to the documents. And that's what I'm asking about. What was the outcome of that meeting? I can read it to you, I guess, because it just, that's where answers are supposed to come from these things. A meeting is scheduled for December 4th to discuss the Hogue project. Key players invited to the meeting are NTUA staff, Wood Patel staff, SPS Plus staff, and NHA staff. We're just looking at 30 units, but I'm not hearing anything about it. And we're going to roll into next month in the same place where we're not getting anything built. We're not making any progress on it. I understand the utilities, all that stuff has been there forever. You need to see some progress on this stuff. What's the outcome of that meeting, December 4th?
I'm not sure the outcome on that. The last status report from last month, when you asked for the status of all the utilities, I sent the 3-page, right? That 3-page report basically outlined every one of the projects with the correspondence of information. Currently, I haven't received that information. I'm sorry I can't answer you that, but if Mr. Franklin or Mr. Nelson, who oversee those programs, can answer those.
Chairman.
Commissioner Lee?
That was 15 days ago when this meeting was supposed to have taken place. Does anybody have information about the outcome of that meeting?
No, were you attending that meeting?
I did not attend that meeting.
Was there a meeting?
I'm not aware of my little.
Was there a meeting?
This is the meeting with Navajo Economic.
You know who inside the meeting with them?
I can get that information right now.
Madam Chair.
I'm not sure if that meeting happened.
Dwayne?
Madam Chair. Commissioner Lee, to give you information, I'll get with staff tomorrow and give you an update, go through the whole sheet and then give you the status of where we can sit. Most likely will. I know that the request over the past several months was looking at each month's progress and reporting of activities. I'll look into changing the format to give it clear and precise. I know that there's been several requests utilizing project management activities. We'll move out and meet with the managers that's overseeing those departments.
Dwayne, if I could add, it seems to me that key players you know, maybe the chapter as well, because I still am of the notion that, you know, we're not water developers or utility developers, we're housing developers. So if the community wants homes there, I think that it's part of planning on their part to facilitate water and utility development. That it can't rest with NHA entirely, because from what I can tell, just running numbers, it won't be feasible if we have to take care of an 8-mile water line extension and utilities. So, you know, I think we need other key players in the group here. Any other questions regarding the health development from the commissioners?
I would just second that, you know, I'm on board with what Frankie had just said as far as not getting the answers that we're looking for. At the previous meeting, we'd asked somebody to go over and review all those requests and kind of give us an outline, kind of sketch or document that outlines the questions, and whether they're not stated an answer at one point. And, you know, I was expecting it at the last meeting, but I didn't get it. And so I was assuming maybe they had it at this meeting. Can you give us an update on something like that?
Commissioner, yeah, like I informed, I'll get with that tomorrow and we'll get some information out for end of day. Look at a different format of reporting so we can
The next one is the maintenance division. There's the current projects there. Auditorium, public rental, that one's 100% complete. Navajo public rentals, 23% complete. The 3 sites overall is at 58% complete, 40 units altogether. And two of those three units are pretty much near the end. Yeah, they're done, and they have one last project there in that group. Development and construction services, we have the modernization upgrades. Chilchimato is done. It says 99%, but I just found out that we moved into MAOs so that we can start ready for occupancy. So is the Fort Defiance, which is down the road there, 302. And then we have new development. Those 36 units over at Kaibito have been completed, and we are ready for we're getting ready for final occupancy. That system is currently under a lift station. We have the contractor taking care of that system for 18 months from the time that the units are occupied. And then we also have procured an additional firm to operate that lift station in the time where we can establish a sewer main and a sewer lagoon to transfer the sewer system over to that new sewer system. All the right-of-ways are underway. We've established a route, and we are working with NTUA as far as determining size and capacity on that new sewer lagoon that we're putting out there. To the city HMO building, the building has been completely demoed, and they are rebuilding the foundation system, and they're currently at 5%. Solar streetlights have been completed. We did ask about, I asked the environmental person that gives us the release of funds, and they informed me that we cannot at this point in time put solar street lights in another right-of-way that's outside our site control. So she said that we're starting to do another solar street light project, and then we can consider putting some, I know there was a request to put additional solar street lights over in Burnside. So hopefully we can get that and get those lights installed within that project. So we have 2 more street light projects that are being put together and being ready for release of funds, going through the final release of funds stages. That's all the construction projects that are underway, that are ongoing. We also have the Navajo taxation, how much we paid in Navajo taxes.
Ernest?
Yes.
Question? Can you give us an update on the HUD or FEMA trailers? There should have been a site inspection of the donated trailers, and where are we at with that? I think that lies within your division.
Madam Chair, I did go down and inspect those trailers the days before Thanksgiving in Beeville, Texas, along with Kim Bahi from the VASH program. And we inspected them and found them to be in excellent condition. And we are currently working with procurement to get a transporter to bring those up to us.
They're 10 trailers, right?
Great.
Yeah.
There's 4 1-bedrooms, 3 2-bedrooms, and 3 3-bedrooms. And if I can, they're 7 or 8 of them are 2018 trailers, one's a 2017 trailer, and one's a 2015 trailer. But there are some issues. We do need to go and upgrade the insulation on them. This is the first time I've seen a mobile home with a fire suppression system in every one of them, but they have them in there. So it's interesting.
Commissioner Lee, you have a question?
These, so the cost initially is 0 because they're being donated by FEMA?
Correct.
And you need to upgrade the insulation because they're not built for this zone up here?
Correct.
Is there a cost for upgrading that? And
We
I guess,
haven't,
is that going to be a donation from us to the VASH program?
That would be up to Mr. Lucetta on what we're doing with that.
So what are we gonna do? with
Cost?
it?
Cost? What's the cost?
We haven't even gotten anybody to look at what the costs are yet. So we're going to do a task order with the A&E on call to do that.
So you build up the insulation on the outside and then re-side it?
Right, we could. That'd be the easiest way to do it.
And then you'd have to re-insulate for the plumbing as well?
The undercarriage would be, I'm sure would have to go and be upgraded as well. And then the roofing would be an interesting option because of the limited crawl space in those quote-unquote attics, even though they're only about a foot high. But it's possible just to lay insulation on the roof deck and roof over it.
Was there any discussion about having trailers that were built properly for this particular zone we live in?
I did mention it at the beginning when we first started doing that because I asked about the climate, what they were rated for, and nobody's raised any objections to that, so we saw free units for the VASH program. So.
Well, I guess you'll have to also keep in mind the need to be able to shut the water off with that suppression system, because if the unit's left unoccupied, like we have so many units unoccupied at this time, remember to drain them out.
Well, like I know that the water pressure in a lot of areas aren't sufficient to provide sprinklers in the units, so they may they could just disconnect them,
yeah.
and not pressurize them.
I'm just interested in the overall cost it is for taking the free units and upgrading them to usable status for, these are going to be permanent dwellings for veterans?
That's up to Bash and the CEO.
Okay.
I was responsible for inspecting and transmitting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dwayne?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Lee, the email I sent out several months ago that was under the VASH program, this is for the homeless portion of the program where we've been, Navajo Housing Authority has been paying high rent in some of these areas, Prescott, Phoenix, some of these areas there, so what HUD was recommending, instead of us spending $1,800, $2,200, can you use those in the zones that you're there to help? Because majority of the ones in Prescott are working off of a case manager's other service. So we're looking at, okay, where can these, the overall aspects of bringing them onto the reservation, we may bring on probably 5, but we're still going through that. We're in collaboration talking with Navajo Nation, because we have only 20 vouchers. So if we use the 20 vouchers and then we bring on 10 more, those units won't be covered under the voucher system. But that's some of the discussion that we're working out with HUD. The plan on here that we've, because this has been since Thanksgiving, is to utilize some of the monies that we had in our operation cost for transportation and a non-program. It's going to cost us about 10 grand to truck them up here. I think the
Total?
10 grand, yeah, no, it's per unit. And $10,000, that's kind of the estimate that our fleet manager was telling us about.
But how will it cover this cost?
No, we're going to cover it under our program costs. Our program costs, which allows that. The report I received back from Ms. Roletto was that these units are fully furnished. Bed, couch, new refrigerator, new microwave. One unit had bunk bed, has kitchen, furniture, everything is furnished in these units. So they haven't been, my understanding from HUD's, a lot of these units were built, were never occupied. So they're just pulling them off their lot. And from the information that I received from staff is that there was thousands and thousands of units out there. Mobile homes, travel trailers, you name it. So
Where will they be placed?
well, currently, we're gonna bring them on, put them on the main land, and then from there, we can disseminate it, because the transporter needs to know where it is gonna, and we're in the, Miss Kim Bahi, which oversees the VASH, is trying to identify the actual final delivery. To get them to us, we're gonna deliver them to the main land, which we have in Theru, which would be an area that we could work on if we need to upgrade them, because from the understanding from Mr. Roletto's, these units have just vinyl siding on there. So the vinyl siding can basically pulled off. I don't have the actual renovation cost for the size of building. We figured it was probably 20,000. So we probably, NHA will probably invest about 30,000 just to climatize them if we need to. So those are still in the motions that we're working on.
What, in the end, where will they be placed in the end?
That's what we're working on, because this was, we need clientele that, if we place 5 of them on the reservation, those ones we can actually transport to those locations. The other ones that I mentioned earlier, Ms. Bahi's working on, is like, there's been a high request for Prescott, because that's where their case manager's working out of. And some of the Navajos are living down in that area.
So we would transport these trailers to the city of Prescott
Yes, sir.
and put them in some mobile home lot and then start paying rental fees for that?
Or just for a lot. That will be, and this in terms of what we're paying now, $1,800 per month to house a family down there.
So we're gonna take on at least a minimum of $50,000 per trailer and then an additional rent per month on top of that. And that's gonna pay out over some kind of time period, I guess, versus paying rent on an apartment in these cities. I hope you have that calculation made out for us to know when the money will be paid off for this scheme.
I have a question. So is it possible to work with the Navajo Nation Veterans Office and the President's Office? And, you know, surely, you know, they have clientele that are ready and waiting, that I think it would be a win-win for NHA and the Navajo Nation to collaborate where these units would go.
That is in discussions with Mr. Zion, because soon, we gotta reach out to them, but the only concerns that staff brought out is if we give them a house like that and we don't upgrade it, they're gonna come back and say it's cold too, but that's where their costs of split them up where we can actually utilize them as a rental. We can gift those out to homeless. But the one thing that HUD told us already, as of last week, these are VASH veterans units, so you can't change the thing.
Oh, so that there's a restriction?
Yeah.
Okay, you didn't say that earlier, so.
Yeah, so that was kind of what we found out, because the first from Dave Sutherland was, you guys do whatever you want with it. Now with Letitia saying, well, it's a VASH requirement for veterans only.
For homeless, these are for homeless veterans.
For homeless or any type of veterans that has some type of physical challenged individuals, PCT, going through the training, that's where the social service comes involved.
I'm just wondering if it wouldn't be cheaper just to buy brand new trailers out of Prescott itself, so we don't have to move them.
So the numbers haven't come in for the transport yet, and that's what they're working on. The numbers from Mr. Loretto looking at the sizes, we haven't finalized those to the actual cost.
So can you verify the restriction? Can you verify the restriction? To me, that seems a little intrusive of tribal sovereignty. You know, I know that FEMA has done this before to tribes in partnership with HUD, but normally it's the tribes accepting the donation and upgrading where it needs to and deciding how it needs to be used, those donation items. I still think that there's a need to partner with the tribe to meet those restrictions if that truly is the case.
Mr. Loretto?
Mr. Willito, you, Arnie?
Oh, I just meant to go and say, I'm sorry, Manager. Lawrencita is in the process of evaluating proposals for the transportation, so she might be able to give you more of a better idea. I know the one cost I got was $6,000 for the short unit, which was a 40-foot by 14, and the longest one is a 60-foot by 40.
Where are they coming from?
Beeville, Texas.
Texas.
It's right by
60
Galveston.
miles north of Corpus Christi.
Could you tell me the number of how many units have like 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom again?
4 are 1 bedrooms, 3 are 2 bedrooms, and 3 are 3 bedrooms. 3 of the 1 bedrooms are really small. They're like bachelor pads. You can only put a full-size mattress in the bedroom.
How many bathrooms in these?
1 on the 1 and 2s, except for 1, 2, I believe has 2, are half bath. And then the other 3 bedrooms have 2 baths.
What do you think the lifespan is of the faucets and toilet and sink?
Well,
and all
they're
that?
brand new. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd say, I lived in a trailer that was 15 years old and it's still the original fixture, so depends on the person who's using them, if they're gonna wear out or not, type of water you're using. But I'd say at least 10 years at a minimum.
But these FEMA trailers, they're only built for temporary residency. I mean, we're gonna turn it into a permanent residency, so.
Well-
I've seen a number of the FEMA trailers that have pretty flimsy fixtures inside them. So, you know, we're gonna guarantee that it's gonna stay in a good condition for some kind of time period. You know, that's probably an additional upgrade we gotta look at.
That's possible. I mean, again, but that's.
That's one thing in weighing out this weighing this out of whether we just buy a trailer made for permanent residents.
Mr. Commissioner, you realize that I wasn't the one to make the decision that we wanted to accept them. I merely went down there, assessed them. It was, I believe, Chairman Beecher and Wasetta are the ones who made the decision to accept 10 of them. So I just went down there and say, yeah, we, based on the condition, I would accept them. The decisions on where they're going, how they're being handled, that's between Bash and the CEO.
I thought that was your decision. No, I know.
Dwayne, can you add some clarity to this here?
For the record, Commissioner Chairman and I didn't make the acceptance, and so just that's clarification. There's a little bit of confusion that's going on. So, a month ago, prior, there was a directive to us, inspected per the email by Madam Chair, which we did, and had 2 staff go down and inspect it for the condition. Because past FEMA trailers had arsenic in them to control mold. And so that was one of the things. So the trailers that were identified that were part of FEMA were built by Fleetwood and several other programs. So the determination of us, where do we sit at? And that's the cost that we met a week and a half ago. Because I asked staff, what's the option? Do we invest all of the monies with, like Mr. Commissioner Lee's asking, or do we just turn them away? What's the cost benefits? And so that's one of the areas that we're looking at. One of the things that is we gift them out. That was a challenge. So I think that's one hard decision that we need to do. And if it's a concern of Commissioner Lee that investment, taking the free homes, investing $30,000 to $40,000 in them, it's not in the best interest of the housing authority. We can move forward with that, but I'll still leave open the option, the discussion with Navajo, because the option during our discussion is that we accept these units. If we gift them out to Navajo Nation veteran program, we'll see if Navajo Nation has their money set up to renovate that.
Yeah.
Because one of the big things that Navajo Nation is rolling out is their modular program, small, similar to SWIFT. So that's a discussion that's still ongoing. It's not it hasn't been quickly resolved, but I think for ourselves it's 10 units. If we can get them here, we can figure it out. Because HUD only gave us 30 days, I think it was, make a decision. You guys want them? No. And I think for ourselves was bring what we can. So I think for myself, and I think as the individual in charge, I think that we accept them and then see what partnerships we can go with Navajo Nation and see where we're at. If there's future offerings like that, we know, because we've never been in this position before to accept FEMA trailers. I know the other tribes are doing them. Zuni has, I think Zuni has like 40 and White River has several of them. But I think for ourselves is making that quantified, because they wanted us to pick them up last Friday, but HUD has given us a little bit of leeway to get them resolved or get them transported out. But I'll touch base with Mr. Zimmerman tomorrow from Navajo Nation again.
Dwayne, I would appreciate some written analysis, the pros and cons and costs added to either side, just so that we can evaluate that. I think this is a great opportunity, but we need to be mindful of all the issues raised here today. Thank you. Commissioner Lee?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm not against the spending of money on these trailers to upgrade them. I would just like that cost analysis to make sure if we're going to be using our money and it takes just a little bit more, because you're talking right now probably $500,000, $500,000 to upgrade and transport these things to a location. And it may be cheaper that we just buy brand new trailers that are meant for permanent residency and supply that. And HUD covers the programmatic costs. That's what we're looking at, rather than And then the trailers, as new trailers for the manufacturer, having a warranty that it carries with it, rather than us having to work out with the tribe, you know, who's gonna cover the warranty on these things? You know, there's all that thought that has to take place. Sometime a gift is not, you know, more of a burden. But I just want us to use our money in a cost-effective fashion. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Lee. I would agree with that. So as soon as you can get that analysis as comprehensive as you can make it, you know, including the Navajo Nation's input. Great. Any other questions, commissioners, on the phone?
I don't have any questions, thank you.
Okay, and then make sure it's included in the report, your report or Ernest, your report on this project. Thank you.
It's in my report.
It's in your report, I looked for it, but
It's in for,
I missed it.
it's in
Okay,
the last item here.
Oh, it is? Oh, okay.
And
All right.
emailed it back.
okay. Sorry about that. Sorry, Ernest, but you can go ahead and continue.
Okay. The last two tables there, before I move on to the other departments, has to do with the amount of taxes we paid for the projects that are ongoing. You have the exterior repairs we paid for in November, $53,418.18. For the new projects, the modular projects, we paid $5,954. And then total altogether for the design build projects, we paid an amount of, oh, that's the wrong number there. 62, a little over $62,000 in Navajo Nation tax. For the modernization projects, we paid in the month of November $86,243,082. So that's the amount of money we paid for. We paid the Navajo Nation tax for ongoing projects. The next section there has to do with the maintenance division. The vacancy turnover, maintenance turned over 6 vacant PR units to the housing management offices for occupancy. Overall, the vacancy decreased by 1 from 518 total units to 517. Those numbers also include all our modernization projects. Is that correct, Arnie?
Right.
So under his report, he has it broken down as far as what's who's as far as the vacancy. But the summary shows the overall vacancy totals. The maintenance division has also continued to have support for the maintenance staff to use HDS doorways and the mobile work order application that's now installed at all HMOs. They all have their data cards have all been installed, and they are now having to use their iPads. And that's as of the November 30th report. And then also he has Arnie's division also has the next batch of IFBs for 129 public rentals. There's a list of them there. We have White Cone has 10 units. There's 3 Noslini sites for a total of 14 units. Mini Farms 16. Tuba City 45 units there. Chilchilka 10 units there. Standing Rock 17 and Naueasy 11 units. So those will all be broken into 4 IFBs so that we can start to award those and get them get the work undergoing.
Question.
Commissioner Lee has a question. Commissioner?
I'd like to know how the computer situation's affected maintenance.
Fortunately, we were able to go and transfer back to the paper process that we had prior to us getting the mobile work order app. My problem is reconciling where they stopped using doorways in the desktop app because of their computers and their manual work order logs. I'm not sure how many of those work orders were not counted in doorways or were still sitting in their computer or whatnot, so I'm not 100% sure that all those numbers are exact, but they're within 10 work orders of plus or minus. But it has slowed down our AAs and the supervisors from doing their administrative portions, but they're still out doing the work orders themselves, just using paper work orders for them. There's not only is there our own internal, but HS Doorways actually has a bug on their work order app that some people can access their work orders on the mobile app, some can't, and HDS Doorways is actually working on trying to fix that glitch they have in their system.
Was that a glitch before the IT event happened?
Yes, actually, we had a couple shops that where they would push their icon on their iPad to log in, and it would open up to the sign-in screen and then shut. But that was something on their end in their system.
So are they able to access the internet through their devices?
For the most part, I'd say so. In some of the areas, they still have, the signal's not strong enough, so like it through, I don't know why it's a blind spot, but they have to go to a truck stop to get strong enough connectivity to transfer that amount of data.
One last question. So do you feel fortunate that we were bringing up in the meetings the need for you guys to have phones and
I do,
the
because
connection?
since the system went down, I can't email anybody or couldn't, so I was texting them on our brand new cell phones to my supervisors, who then could go and text to their staff. So that was for us, a good way to be able to communicate with 80 plus staff.
Okay.
Dwayne?
Mr. Roletto, did you let your staff, the first notice that we sent out, did you let your staff know that they can use their hotspots to get onto use their laptops to transfer information back and forth between HDS?
Yes, they were aware of that. The problem with that is they're limited to only 2 Gs, and they blow through that, we're halfway through the month, so they don't have the data to do it. So that's the hindrance.
The concerns with the data, we did lift those data so that they have, with IT, we opened up the data lines on that. So that was given, housing management was provided the same information. Monday, I walked through with 5 HDs. Some of them were not even aware that the phones, they knew that they can do that, but some of their staff knew about it. So this is the education portion from the supervisor level down. How do we send notice out utilizing, because we invested over $400,000 on telecommunication. And I think that was the struggles that we were doing with. Thank you, Mr. Roletto, for doing that, at least with the staff that can keep it gotcha.
Thank you. Ernest?
Okay. The next bullet item there is concerns work orders. There was 591 carryover work orders from October, and there was 4,611 new work orders in the month of November for a total of 202. The maintenance division completed of that 5,000. They did 3,742 work orders, and is carrying over 1,460 into the month of December. Total cost for those work orders is $72,256.69. And the next bullet line item has to do with the annual inspections. They've conducted 3,031 out of the 4,316 public rental units, and conducted 504 out of the 1,666 homeowner units. So that activity happens throughout the whole first quarter of the year. So the first 2 quarters of the year. So they should be completed by the mid of the second quarter. The next one there is housing management. Any
There's a
questions?
question. Commissioner Lee?
So the data here, it says through November. So is that data good only up until the crash of the computer system?
No, I added the manual stuff that they report as well. So whatever I was able to get off of HDS by pulling down the work order reports that I have set up in the systems for each of the management offices, I pulled those down, and then what they have manually reported on their monthly reports to me, I combined the two.
What date have you been told you're going to be back at 100%?
Well, 100%, probably not till the end of March, I'm thinking, but we're gonna have limited access here supposedly by the 23rd. But it's gonna be like one individual from each of my maintenance shops is gonna have secure connectivity to the cloud-based network until they rebuild our system within our organization. Which will, so we have to work with.
Thank you.
And if I could, Madam Chair, I'd like to go and highlight the reason the increase in the carryover work orders is because a lot of the annual inspections were scheduled and put into the system in November, but they're not going to be completed. They're scheduled for December month. So they put them in the system, but they weren't done because they're scheduled with the homeowners or the tenants in the month of December. That's why there's a bunch of increase in there.
Thank you, Ronnie. Okay, Ernest.
Okay, next section there is the Housing Management Division. They created a standard Monday morning meeting with the all 15 housing management offices to increase the communication between Arnie's staff and also the HMO staff to find out which units are going to be ready for vacancies, which one, and giving an update on the work orders that are being issued for that respective HMO. They are also communicating on reaching the overall KPAs and KRAs. I did submit our expectations on what we should be reaching and how we should be and how we're going to be accountable and know the roles and responsibilities between the two entities to get to make sure that we bring down the vacancy rates that are happening out there. The next bullet item has to do with the housing management. It has a full leadership team. We finally have a full staff on the housing management staff. And the last person that was hired was Jolene Bergen, which was the Tuba City Housing Director. So now we have all the housing management staff on board and participating in all the activities that are happening within each of the housing management staff.
I have a question.
Yes.
You know, I'm going to use an example. I've raised this example of the wait list and the application process for vacant PR units. I think I mentioned a pregnant female with a child not having a place to live and made application to Tohatchee and then Ojo. Married recently and separated. So I think just the other day from Ojo, she was given her application back and taken off the wait list because of the fact that her application indicated her name, but not her married name. She was told to go and have her Social Security card changed. She's married now. She needs to add her husband's name to her name and take her maiden name off. So to me, I married and I never changed my name. So where is it in policy for NHA at Ojo especially to require a young lady who's now been taken off the wait list because her application is wrong and that she's married and she should change her name and go to BIA and have her CIB, go to Social Security and reflect the marriage, and I don't think that's correct. So can somebody tell me and verify where that policy is and why we're doing that and whether she does need to change her name? I told her she didn't. She can indicate she's married and show her husband's name, but she doesn't have to go and change her name. That's an old BIA trick. They told me 32 years ago that I had to do the same, and I said, no, I don't. So maybe Mr. Losetta, our legal, can you help me here? And help this young lady. She's still homeless. Now she's off the wait list and told to resubmit paperwork with her married name on it.
It's not in the Pacific policy, so, because we referred her up here after conversation. I need to find out what they're talking about, so if I can get the information, if I can contact her and then we'll sit down and meet with her, if I have to go up there and see what is being provided to her. Because if you recall, about a year ago when we did the housing management tour, we became aware that each housing manager were running their own silo system of documentation. This might be in the same scenario again, but if I can get the client's name and then look at the documentation that she submitted versus what's in the policy system.
So can you verify that she doesn't have to change her name? I mean, that's not even legal. I mean, it's legal for her to keep her name.
Yeah, as long as he has documentation to support her name on travel census, CIB, or driver's license, birth certificate, that should be sufficient enough. That's all that's required.
Right, and then the newborn is about a month old, may or may not carry the dad's name, but still, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I think that we shouldn't be telling our newlywed mothers to change their name. That's old. That's an old system. I don't agree with that. So that tells me that our waitlist system and our application process is still flawed, and that we still have silos. So if this Monday morning meeting includes an agenda item to talk about consolidation of how we implement our policies and maybe even an understanding of our policies. You know, this young lady should be housed now. She's been waiting. She had the baby a month ago, and she's sleeping on the floor with her child and the baby at her grandmother's house. It's just not right.
He says if I can give their contact
Okay.
information, I'll contact,
Okay.
because I had an emergency client 3 weeks ago. Husband passed away, the house burned down. We got him moved in under an emergency scenario where there's a clause within our policy that allows us to not get all the documentation. We work through that. We get them housed and we move forward. So because on the one scenario in Shiprock, we basically moved her in, got her situated. Mr. John there is working through getting the paperwork in place. And we extended it for her because of the condition that she's in now. So if I can get her information again, then
Okay.
I'll be contact person. Thank you.
All right, we appreciate it. Commissioner Lee?
What was the reasoning? She had applied to 2 other HMOs before?
She
Was
did.
denied?
She was put on the waiting list. And she was married prior to that, so therefore she kept her maiden name, didn't want to change to her husband's name. And she was told that when the baby arrives, she would be moved up the waiting list. Well, the baby arrived, she went in to check on her application, and they told her that her application is now wrong. I'm giving it back to you, change your name because you're married, and we'll have to take you off the wait list because we no longer have an application for you.
That was the consensus from the 3 HMOs?
That was from OHO.
Okay. But the other 2?
Well, the other 2 moved her application to OHO.
Oh.
So here again, it seems like we have vacancies and we're not managing our vacancy list and our wait list to house people that really need it.
I think, Madam Vice Chair, if I could add a quick comment, I think that
Sure.
also the other thing that highlights the scenario you just spoke of is the training of the HMO, directors and the people making those decisions on the list. It's frustrating to hear that, still even I think we talked in the summertime about it, that the application process wasn't necessarily uniform throughout, and that really speaks to the training aspect as opposed to the process. I mean, we could write the perfect process, but if people aren't following the process,
True.
we'll never get there. So even if on paper we have something really outlined, if the HMOs feel that it's okay to kind of adjust where they see fit and add different things, like you have to have your name changed, or like you have to have this particular form updated this way, or like you have to have a photo of the car that you're staying in, which is ridiculous. I think that we're not training well enough, and that's the fundamental issue. At this point, let's say we as an organization, all the top, executives team and the board come up and say, this is exactly what we need to do. This is the process that any application is going to need, and we create it. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to follow it. So we need to come up with some sort of mechanism that makes that process uniform. And I think that we talked about bringing all the applications through the central office to kind of to keep them all the same, to kind of examine it. That was helpful, but here that they're doing these other oddball policy adjustments is very concerning, because it really just tells us that we don't have the training available, or we're not doing the training to keep everybody on the same page. And I think it's not going to be just a one-time thing. It's a month-to-month or even week-to-week process of getting everybody trained on the same requirements to move into an NHA home in any capacity. But I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Lee?
I appreciate getting an update on that person's situation on a weekly basis. So that's all.
I'm sure she's not the only one. Okay. Ernest?
Madam Vice Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Begay, go ahead.
I'd just like to add, there's a couple of veterans also out there that have the same similar problems, and they're being turned away, indicating that just by the look of, their subs that they turn in, they're not giving the opportunity to come in the application. They just say that, you have to work and you make too much, so we can't help you. And I know of several veterans that happened, and they did voice their concerns on that. And I just want to make sure that still, I'm noticing within all of the HMOs, they are not all on the same page. They're applying different policies, doing, their own requirements and qualifications. And I know a year ago we spoke about trying to have the HMOs doing the same things, providing the same services, providing the same educational training, and not just looking out, their own because, because they want to. But I think overall consistency needs to happen, and that if we have a tenant here in Venado that wants to travel or transfer to Shiprock, then their files from here should be transferred over there, not starting the whole process. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Begay. So I know, Ernest, you have some summary bullet points here. If I could just add with a question. I know we have home ownership units that I've now seen vacant because they're boarded up outside of Shiprock, as an example that I saw. And I think the question was posed about the status of those units, and family moved out it's on a homestead with a home site lease. And if the previous tenant lost their home because they weren't paid, and there was a court order that essentially said that the home now, actually the home site lease is collateralized, right, with NHA? How does that collateral home site go into the name of a prospective tenant for that homeowner unit, say a family member? Who takes care of that? Is it NHA using non-program income to facilitate that and making sure that happens? Can you explain that process to me?
Madam Chair, when we utilize the collateral assignment and the way that the process happens, because the individual who's coming into the second home buyer or so is taking over the house, we'll issue the collateral assignment, we'll resolve the last person's name, and then issue one in the new person, the new homeowner's name for the property for the duration of whatever is left on there. So we would do all of that. But it will require, this is the tricky part, it will require the transfer of that home site, transfer of that into the new home buyer's name. So then the home site needs to be resolved, then we put it in the NHA, because it's an eligible client, and we do have, the programs are funded under the she's an eligible client, or he's an eligible client, we would do all that for them.
Okay, so there's a process in place to do that instead of saying, well, it's up to you to go get a home site now?
Yeah, there's a process in
Okay,
place.
all right.
Because I mean, it's just like any new development scatter site. We go out, assess it, project driven, so those funding sources are earmarked for all those activities.
Yeah, I recall that, so I know that we haven't spent down on those services, and I know that there are likely a few clients out there that need that transfer, and that, you know, the home is still vacant. The homes are still vacant. Yeah, okay. That's it for me for now, Ernest.
Okay. So, the last bullet point I have under that one is the tenant collection of all 15 housing maintenance offices, or housing management offices, for the month of November was $841,046. In October it was $795,222, or $226.70. In September it was $798,720.18. Therefore, the housing management collection collected $45,819.30 more than the previous month of October. So that was just the data that was presented to me by the housing management office. Criminal activities, we have the 3 months there from September, October, November. November they had 10 incidents related to dogs, 3 domestic violence, 1 alcohol-related incident, 0 drugs. Property damage was 2, disorderly conduct 0, and then other was 13. I can't remember what the other was because that was a question before. And so the total number of reports was 29 for the month of November. And then the active tenants accounts receivable, the TAR for the month of November is $105,590.66, and the TAR for the month of October was $147,177.66. The TAR has decreased by $41,587 from October to November. We have for the public rental an amount of $38,304.07 in active TAR, and we are waiting for Treasury to post $7,674.07 in adjustments, and maintenance posted $8,022.74 in work order charges that the HMO still needs to collect. And then we have veterans clientele for the month of November. That was a total of 348. Last month, we had a decrease in home ownership, which was by 5, and that had to do with the transfers that were given back to the transfer of interest that was given back to the homeowner. So we have homeowner, the number of homeowners that we have is 149, and then in our public rentals, we have 199. That makes up the amount of 348 that we are now assisting. As far as for the budgets were at the time of this report hadn't been posted at that time. So I had numbers in there last month. That was just kind of a guesstimate, but I didn't want to do any more guessing until we actually had final numbers from our accountant. So I put in 0. So in December we should have numbers that are based on what is actually in our budgets. As far as training, we had the KPMG policy orientation trainings that were held in the month of November at various locations around the Navajo Nation. The Navigator training was also held throughout the month of November at NH. This happened before the virus event happened, and it happened over here at the Fort Defiance campus at the property and supply conference room. And then we are continuing to meet and update progress on the corrective action plan for the CAP concerning the forensic audit conducted by KPMG under the direction of the Navajo Nation President and Vice President, Office of Navajo Nation President and Vice President. There was, as far as safety, there was 2 instances that happened. They had one, and they both happened in the maintenance department. One had a sprained ankle, a broken ankle.
Supervisor said broken
Ankle, and then a near miss. And that concludes my report, Commissioners.
Thank you, Ernest. I just have one question. You had mentioned earlier, without adding too much detail, to the individual that handled all your contracts.
Yes.
And the workload that is there still in her absence.
Mm-hmm.
How are we going to address that? Because you mentioned there was some delay in processing and things like that. So can you?
Yeah, I'm in the process of interviewing some applicants. I've been working with HR to get somebody in there. So we are going to be conducting interviews this coming Monday, and we should be able to select an additional help while our previous contract analyst is absent. So we'll have additional help there, and we should be able to. And like I said, I also instructed our project managers. We faced this problem before, and I told them that you have to take over and start drafting your own resolutions, drafting your own contract, because contracts are boilerplates. Mm-hmm. All we got to do is get them ready and get them forwarded over to legal review so that they can move forward and be put on the agenda. So I told them that you still, I mean, it shouldn't be an excuse. You still have to move these projects forward and move towards award.
So does that mean that someone's going to come in temporarily from?
No, it's going to be a permanent help.
So you have a second position?
Yes.
Oh, good deal. Okay. All right. Commissioner Lee?
I'd like to know how the computer situations affected the payment processing.
It has, it's slowed us.
From the HMOs.
Oh, from the HMOs. Heather's not here. We did, in the meantime, Don, you want to chime in on how we got to collect payments for our tenants?
Good morning, Manager, Board.
Can you hold on a bit? Dwayne, you want to answer the question?
There was probably 2 weeks ago, through Treasury and Ms. Law, who requested all HMOs to go back into the ledger, using the ledger book to actually accept payments. So prior to them having to not be disconnected, this was the first of the month there around Thanksgiving, they started utilizing the ledger books for accepting payments. This goes back to the connections. All the HMOs
directors, the fiscal technicians and housing tech had iPads, which could log into HDS. The only thing that they're concerned that they were kept on bringing up, I can't print. And this came into this scenario was that there was no communication from the supervisor's level that you can connect with your Wi-Fi, hook it up to your computer. Once you're logged in through there, accept payments through that Wi-Fi to the cloud, to HDS, which is situated there, and then connect to that individual standalone printer. Because those some of the units out there were scanned, they were free of anything. They were still working, and they could just connect to the printers that they had. But there were some offices that did not have that information or guidance from supervisors to utilize that opportunity, the Wi-Fi connections. But there was, Kathy can help me on this, Treasury was basically helping them, issuing some ledger books and asking them to utilize that. That's kind of the information I know that was passed on from the operational branch. I'm not sure what communication came out, but from our level, that was the request around Thanksgiving, because we're preparing for the first of the month wave after Thanksgiving. Sure.
So operationally, what percent level are we at as far as performing that duty of taking the payments in from renters and homeowners? Are we operating at 10%, 20%, 50%?
I don't have that information available at me. So I was looking through the report. I'm seeing what was reported from the internet one in terms of how much money was received. The report that just said $800,000 for a month, but there was no information that was collected.
I just wish Heather was here to answer that question about how she's been affected by the internet situation or the computer situation on that fund processing.
Madam Chair, this one.
Oh, yeah. Kathy, you want to respond?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. As far as payments being received at the HDS and at the housing management level, it was not affected because HDS Doorways is already in the cloud. So with them, housing management field staff having the iPads, they're able to connect. And the only thing, as mentioned with our CEO, was that we did provide, and they should have rental receipt booklets or homebuyer booklets. So if for some reason the information wasn't passed on to them, all they had to do was fill out a paper receipt and then input that into Doorways once they have internet access. So there was no hiccups as far as payments. So there was no hiccup there, or either that there was no hiccup as far as refund requests. So just to have that communication between Treasury and the field staff.
So you're saying every HMO has internet access right now?
Each office needs to have two iPads or the phone connection through the Wi-Fi. And like I mentioned earlier, Monday when I had visits from 5 different HMOs. Out of 5 different HMOs, some of them didn't pass on the information about connecting their phone to a laptop.
So all the HMOs have their internet capabilities restored? They're operating 100%?
No. They're all working off of Wi-Fi. They should be working off the data line like I mentioned earlier.
So they're using Verizon network, I guess, wireless or Cellular One network. So we have nothing going over our Ethernet.
Not until
we get it secured.
we get it secured.
Well, Leto said March. Is that what the date is? We're looking at March before we're back up at 100%? Back up at 100%?
No, it's good. Oh, the one thing is that we can turn it on. We have it in Winter Rock. We have it here. It's making it secure with the laptops. Because when we go through this phase of when we went through the evaluation portion, say in Tohatchee, all their systems were compromised because of them. What we're looking at is tracing
where they're using the computers at outside our network, bringing them in. Sharing jump drives with each other as part of the stuff that we're finding. But with the internet service we have now, it's turned on in Fort Defiance. It's turned on here. It's getting those access points out at the field office to get them secure. One thing that's I'm gonna bring this out. You're gonna get a lot of reports that Housing Authority Executive Management is restricting me to do my work, getting onto the internet, getting onto other sites. One thing that we've tried it before and in the past, we're gonna utilize the federal inbound communication guidelines, meaning that this is only work for activities within Housing Authority, where people can't visit their personal email, people can't make their own arrangements outside for personal use. Just basically, we're gonna lock down everything. Because one of the biggest things is that we've allowed that to be open. And Wi-Fi, as you notice, we've had that here. When people log on to Wi-Fi, that's been one of the things. It's actually taking that down and stabilizing, because using that federal approach will basically give us the security. We're not going to be 100% secure, but it's just the foundation of where we're going to be at.
I thank you for that additional information, but I was just wondering overall when our entire computer system is going to be back up and running at 100%.
Mr. Frank, raise your hand.
Commissioner Lee, just to kind of add more information on that, what we've done is we tried 2 weeks to kind of try to scrub our environment and reestablish the servers, but for unknown reasons, the virus kept popping up. So we decided to scratch that whole thing, and Nadine and Dawn have been able to establish a virtual environment, a secure virtual environment with Amazon Web Services. So we've been loading up all the servers up into, so we have a virtual environment. We'll have virtual servers up on the thing. They'll handle Navigator. They'll handle our email exchange, and that system's going to be in place until we reformat all our servers and reestablish a network backup and running. That's what Arnie meant when he said that it will probably be until March when we can bring everything back down. One of the things that we're also looking at is keeping that system in place, and it'll be our backup system. And in case we ever get attacked again, we can move right straight to this. So the wireless system that has been established is an encrypted wireless system, so that we can continue to and we're scrubbing all we're making sure that we are updating our virus detection, everything else, and we're getting dashboard reports from our new system as far as who's, if we can detect now who is pushing out viruses or has been affected by any viruses out there. We've already detected one employee. We've isolated them and told them that you're no longer on the internet until we go back and get you isolated and cleared for you to get back on. So that's the kind of protocols we have.
Chairman, Commissioner Lee has a question, and then you, Commissioner Lee.
I've heard all of that already, and what I've not heard is a unified plan of attack by IT under one person in charge of getting us back up and running. We're right now on day 29 and looking out into March. That's another 90 days away at least before we're back up and running at 100%. That's a quarter of a year. No, that's a third of a year right there. And I've not had a plan put in front of us about what we're going to be attacking and timelines on when we're going to achieve this, and nothing. But I know for sure that we've got two individuals that are fixing the internet, fixing our IT from in two different places, and I can't understand why we don't have one person in charge of getting our IT system up and running. You know, I hear this, we're gonna get things up into the cloud and on and on. It's like, well, when's that date gonna happen? You know, when are these due dates for getting these activities done? And when are we gonna have an actual end date for getting the IT system fixed? You know, that's my question, and it's the question I get from employees across the board saying to me, you know, when is this gonna be done? Because I'm still not getting communication from my superiors. It's very frustrating for me. And the acceptance of Window having their own IT solution and Fort Defiance having their own IT solution and reaching out to HMOs and then bringing things back in here, it's like this plan just keeps changing all the time. And there's nothing that's being put down on paper to give us on a weekly basis to say this is how we're progressing, this is the change we need to the plan, you know, this is going to be the projected completion date for getting us back online. I as one board member, I'd like to have that information and not hear this continuous repeat of information that we've been presented back at day 5, back at day 10, back at day 15, and now day 29 hearing it again. You know, I'm frustrated because of everybody else who's bearing the same frustration. I still don't understand, 2.5 years in, why we have a split in IT, why that is necessary. We might as well take every department and split it in half and give one chief for every activity. If we want to duplicate efforts, it just doesn't make any sense to me. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Lee. Mr. Chair, you had a...
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Two things, and I echo Commissioner Lee's frustrations, and also would note that we're hearing it on the back end from all employees all around. Obviously, we're in the workaround stage. We've got some things up and going, but we do need a clear-cut plan that's laid out in an easy-to-follow, you know, metric, and saying this is where we're going to be at this point, this is where we're going to be at this point, and have a really timeline-based plan that we can point to and hold people accountable to. Secondly, with that accountability, in the same vein that Interim CEO Mr. Wasetta was speaking about, I'd also like to point out to you know, the organization that, yeah, these changes will need to be made. We're expecting it, and it's really no different than anything in the professional world where the work computer to the work computer. You're not going to be able to access private emails and the such. It's going to be locked down just like any other professional environment at this point. We all know the issues with flash drives and keeping and downloading personal information on computers and company devices. I think it's important to point out that, you know, going forward, to avoid having to deal with these types of things, our best efforts are going to require that we lock down the computers. You know, and that's just the environment that we live in these days as professionals, and it's just for the better of the organization. So if you feel any pushback, you can point them in the direction of the board and let them know that, you know, we've had to make these decisions to avoid having this inconvenience of having to deal with these types of things. Thank you.
Commissioner Lee?
One last thing. You know, it's probably month number 6 of me being on the board that I've been asking for a security assessment to be done on NHA to avoid the situation we're in right now. You know, as we have a plan on how to get things up and running again, we need to have a true assessment done so that we're aiming towards a goal of a stronger, more protected NHA in the future. A goal that's acceptable by both our IT operations. And I don't know why it's been delayed all this time, but we've gone through 3-4 CEOs, and it's been something I've been asking for, and now we're sitting right in the mess. You know, I guess we need to issue an order or something to get that assessment done. Because we have the consultants hired who are helping us fix the system, but we got to make sure that we're actually going to achieve a much better, as protected a product as we can have for NHA going forward, with the policies and procedures that are necessary, like not allowing the employees to access personal email accounts or other things that are now just popping up as things we need to take on right now and put into effect. You know, it needs to be part of a unified plan on how to achieve a stronger IT in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lee. So Dwayne, I think over the last month, on a weekly basis, if not more, we've heard plans verbally. So the board is asking for, here you go, another comprehensive written plan about not only addressing the current situation mess that we're in, but how to obtain and achieve a secure IT environment. And I believe we've had the IT assessment, haven't we? And what were the recommendations? And I think the recommendations is that we need to do exactly what Commissioner Lee is wishing for. So another item on your to-do list ASAP.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We did hire a firm. We're going through, we finalized the last part of the assessment because of the due diligence. But that was, but in terms of the previous assessment a year ago, there was one done. So I'll get with the operations, all the managers that are overseeing this, their portions of the plan. And in terms of two different individuals, there's the project oversight from Ms. Claw was basically the Microsoft, because up here has the contract current contract existing with Microsoft, their ELA, their tribal contract. She took that on to come in and evaluate that. So she was project manager driven on that aspects to do the evaluation with Microsoft. The aspects of Mr. Noble's part of it was the telecommunication portion of it, which we were working with my Robert, because one of the biggest things that's hindering us, and that's if you read the letter that I sent out to HUD, to Dave Sutherland, utilizing an emergency clause for non-procurement. Because of all of the stuff that has happened and we changed the policies and what we're going to be visiting with the new procurement, those were some of the steps to get us in place with the sole source. The plan that basically we got through all that stuff, now is putting together all of the stuff that has been evaluated, the recommendation for the build out. The phone systems. We currently haven't went back into the servers yet because those are actually just sitting there for evaluation. We're not knowing if there's a certain step of the first evaluation that was done here. It was when the virus went through, it started from A to B, we stopped at C. And it was just alphabetical virus that went through. So that's quarantine. And that part, the bottom port is taking that and be utilizing it. So I'll put that and I'll get operations who's overseeing Mr. Noble, Ms. Claw, to put together that documentation for us.
Commissioner Lee.
I'm going to get right to the point on this. With the last information we got from Nadine and from Mr. Noble, Nadine talking directly to the company that supplies us with the software to identify the virus or any attack, that company said our fees, our monies weren't paid to maintain the latest subscription for that information. That's what Nadine said, that the company told her, and it has not been paid for 3 years. If we have a security assessment that's been done that didn't notify us about that, there's something very wrong there, because that company should have said, hey, you guys are wide open. You've not updated your security information for 3 years. Get that done now. That's an emergency, absolute emergency. Whenever that assessment was done, if it was 6 months ago, 3 months ago, that should have been a red light with a blaring horn telling us, hey, pay the company. Get the latest updates done. But that's what Nadine says, she got the information directly from the company. Don says otherwise. He says they're wrong. Now, there's a big disconnect right there to me. That's like you either pay the power bill or you don't pay the power bill. And you're sitting around in the dark and we're talking to each other saying, the lights are on. The switch may be on, but we don't got any electricity. That's what it comes down to in my mind. We left ourselves wide open for this event to happen. And if we already had the security assessment, that should have been identified. I'm not liking what I'm hearing with conflicting information sources coming from the companies saying, this is the problem, this is the problem. You know, because I'm hearing two different stories from the two different IT people in charge of getting us back online. That shouldn't be. If there was one person in charge, I don't see the conflict there. But to hear two different stories on what brought us to the ground, extremely frustrating. And now to hear that the security assessment was already done and that wasn't addressed or identified, to me, that's a bad security assessment that was done. If they didn't even just look at that. And I said this in our meetings, I keep aware of my security being updated all the time with the software that I use on my phone and my computers. That's idea number one in my mind. I need my computer, I need to be safe. Those are two things that I have to ensure for myself. That should be the two things that the head of IT is responsible for NHA. Keep us up and running, make sure we're safe. I don't see where that needs to happen going forward. And I need to have some information that's not conflicting on the IT side. You know, and that information only came because we had one person report to us, that person left, then the other person came in and reported to us. And then they left, and I'm sitting there thinking, those are two different stories. It's like flipping one page to the other. It's exactly the opposite of what the other was saying. I don't know if that came across to you, ICEO, but you know, that's what came across to me. That's all I got.
Thank you, Commissioner Lee. It was apparent this morning, Dwayne, so we need to find some solution to that. Your response?
I think this is my frustration, is that what information being provided to you for cost breakdowns of the last 3 years. That wasn't provided. All it says, all staff says and reported, there's the written report that's coming from the consultant. So we're saying we didn't pay for 3 years. That information for what years was not paid, even the contact information is not provided. One of the big frustrations I'm seeing is that we have one individual who's going out. I was informed yesterday that they contact Homeland Security. And myself as I know. So this is the thing that we had from yesterday's session, my staff. I need to be aware of what is going on at every different layer of this project. The big concern that I'm having is hidden agendas. One individual's trying to do this part, one individual's doing this. That needs to stop. Because one thing I needed addressed it after I sent my letter, HUD basically wrote us back. I have to amend the Indian housing plan for activities that Nadine's doing. Because Dawn's information is already in the housing plan. The other part of concern that I'm very concerned about is utilizing personal cars to buy stuff that's not following our procurement policy ahead of time before having documentation in place. I know that the urgency. That's what I voiced yesterday. For 4 hours I met with them. because I'm getting this information here, I'm working over here, trying to make sure the money's available, making sure that I'm following all the guidelines and regulatory. So I'm sorry if you're getting mixed up. I'm in the same boat. I'm working through several different individuals. And for myself, sitting in this position, there is challenges. And it's not because of profession. It's a different beast that I don't want to say here. But as we say, and that's what I instructed yesterday, give me the timeline, give me the idea. Me and Robert, I went through all of the different service agreements that we had. What did we need for contracts? We get away from service agreements, just sign them. We need to know what is the deliverables, what do we need to do, what is the extent it's going to be. And that was done all in one day yesterday afternoon, just to meet the requirements of some of the information that the contract agreements. So what you're asking for is what I'm asking for. Because we got to have an end date. So your understanding, your frustration is echoed in here as a professional. But I think the other part of what you need, if you have an opportunity tomorrow, visit what they've done in Central. In a month and a half, we have recreated a new data center down there. That was prior to the setback too. We established an in-road cooling system, a different environment from what they were working at, something that's manageable. The struggles on that portion is that our modifications that we put in place, we had struggles with Frontier, just because of the way we have this, what we're going through. And I think that's one thing, if you give it an opportunity to look at what outside of here versus what we're doing, you kind of get an idea of what we're up against. I know putting in black and white's there, but the physical part, visually seeing it, I encourage that. I'll manage it, I'll leave it as that.
Commissioner Lee?
In response to what you just said, I hope everything that you guys have done over there is going to work with a better, stronger, more protected IT going forward. Otherwise, we just wasted a lot of money. If we don't have a plan already that we're aiming for, and we're just doing this on the fly, that's a big concern of mine. Because I haven't seen the plan. I've not seen any security assessment, anything to aim at. Do you understand my frustration? Because I've been asking for this for a long time. Security assessment. What's the plan?
Thank you, Commissioner Lee. So the way this is obviously a challenge, there is disconnect. You mentioned other issues that I believe are maybe personnel related. You have the resources and you have a deputy that I think maybe you could name as project manager over both individuals and offload some of the attention that you need to in other areas and maybe have Mr. Nopa take on this task immediately and provide everything that we're asking for. I think teamwork is necessary, but this is a huge issue regarding security, and we've been dealing with this and trying to address it over the last 2.5 years.
Madam Chair, just yesterday, Mr. Noble was taking the lead to make sure it follows up with everybody.
Okay.
So he's actually was given the hat to monitor, engage, and look at benchmarks. What do we do this week? What do we have this week? And that's kind of the shift of responsibilities there, so I can focus on the other aspects dealing with HUD. So that has happened yesterday after our large meeting with all the key individuals.
I think your channels of communication should go through Mr. Nopa, especially externally. Make sure that's a security issue in itself. Yeah. Commissioner Lee?
We'll do that.
Just, I want you to realize, I just want the plan. I want a timeline, and that's it. If it takes till March, it takes till March. you know, we just got to know what steps we need to achieve in order to get that done. And, you know, and then everybody will know. You know, we'll have it done by March, or we'll have it done by the end of January. You know, we just need to know that. I need to know that. You know, so I can quit saying, I don't know. I hate saying that. I don't like saying I don't know. I'd rather say, well, I'll find you the answer, which is what I'm trying to do right now, by getting a plan put in place and saying, okay, these are what we're going to achieve along the way, milestones, and then now project completion. January, February, March, April, May, I don't know. You know, but let's just be realistic and just say this is how long it's going to take, and then we'll get it done. Because no doubt I know that Navajo Nation is going through the same thing. You know, hopefully we're in a better process, you know, than them, so we can get up and running, back up to 100% quicker. You know, but let's all understand how long it's going to take and what needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lee. Further comments from Mr. Chair or Commissioner Begay? Hearing none.
Thank you. Oh, sorry. Thanks for trying to talk while the mute was on.
Okay, Mr. Chair.
I'd echo Commissioner Lee's concerns, and obviously part of the benefit of having an actual timeline is to make sure we're holding ourselves accountable. And if we understand that, then we have a better idea, okay, of saying, okay, here's how, you know, if we're going to meet this, this is how we have to plan. And you know, I think that's one of the bigger issues that we're kind of pointing to as a board, to make sure that we are holding ourselves accountable as an organization. The other thing that helps is if we have other questions from our oversight or any other leaders, and we can also be able to speak matter-of-factly and not necessarily going, well, we think it's going to be this, or we think it's going to be. If we have an actual timeline, that helps us. It also helps other organizations that might be dealing with similar things kind of benchmark against where we're at, and share possibly give us the ability to share best practices over the long haul, or even in the future. So I think I echo the concerns. I also want to see that document. I want to see a laid out plan. Obviously we're getting the updates verbally, but we also need to commit this to paper as well. So, thank you.
Agreed, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Okay, Ernest, are you?
Yeah, that concludes my report.
We're almost there. Commissioner Lee.
Now look at the suggestions and concerns, recommendations from planning. There's a lot in here about the reduction of support staff. You know, when is that issue going to be taken care of?
We've advertised several times, and there's just the human resource pool is just not there. I mean, we've advertised like 3 times, and we've interviewed, and we can't find anybody that can fill those positions that we need as far as development coordinators. And a lot of it, well, we did find some individuals, but they want more money than we are offering. And fortunately, that's what we're budgeted at, and that's pretty much where we're at. You want to add anything, Roland?
No, yeah, just echoing what you said is that we've interviewed multiple times. We've made offers. Those offers have come back declined, and it's a struggle, but it's something that we're working on a weekly basis. It's trying to hire some quality staff who are competent, who are willing to get the job done, but it's also finding the pool of qualified applicants.
Okay. Well, regarding survey department, what's your solution for the length of time it takes for BIA to review boundary plats for master leases?
Right now, all the master leases go to the Navajo Nation, and hopefully the biggest thing with the BIA is just the recording requirements. So we have it recorded here on our LEMS, but they won't accept that as a legal document. So it goes back to having the BIA is so backed up as far as the recording of all these leases that are coming in. We've talked to the land administration and told them, you have to come up with your own title plant, or else we're going to be in this position all the time. But as far as us we record all our master leases when they come in. They're attached to our limbs and also backed up by documentation with Highland On Base. So that's pretty much, we have no control pretty much what the BIA can do. But as far as recording, that's the biggest thing, is recording these titles and putting it in some sort of title plant database.
Dwayne?
To answer your question, Commissioner Lee, if you familiarize with Bureau of Indian Affairs, Navajo Nation does their leasing, submit it to Navajo Regional. Navajo Regional sends it to Albuquerque, their title plant. So they record it there. The big part is that we don't have control of Navajo Regional Albuquerque for recordation. So that's something that, if you can recall, we met with BIA Regional Director, Navajo Land Department. They're trying to because their turnaround is looking at 6 months to a year because of the staff reduction that they had. But they assured us that they were going to give us a plan. I have not received that update information through, maybe that's something that part of our legislative agreements is we need to maybe ask RDC to assist us on that, because that's something that that impacts us. For new developments, if we're going to get a new master lease, if we're going to do right-of-ways, those are something that we have to, but just in a nutshell, that's the process. Once it gets to Navajo Regional, then it ships to Albuquerque, that we have no control of that time frame.
Didn't we have agreement from BIA that if we could supply someone who had the credentials that they need, that they would find acceptable, that we could have that person in-house, possibly train somebody in-house to that level where they would accept it?
We had that verbal agreement, but with the reduction of Navajo Regional, they're wanting to handle it themselves. This is from the discussion that Simone presented during our leadership meeting, is that she wants to do it all herself. And I think it's basically just based on trying to keep their staffing capacity. Because at one time, we were putting everything on a Word file, and then giving that Word file so they don't have to retype it back out, and then they just put it in the system. Because the TAM system is based off a Word file. We just take that, incorporate it, and then that stopped. And it stopped about 2 years ago. My understanding Richard was still here. But that's something that we can revisit again, because that's going to be the challenges when we roll out with all these new development sites that we have planned out. We do the land designation, which will get us through the construction, but it's the actual part once it finalizes the lease for the housing developments. Maybe it's home ownership with rentals.
Okay. So does that also relate to the, well, this is Navajo Nation, under Realty Department, any changes from the master lease and collateral and partial assignment forms will need to be approved by Navajo Nation Resource Development Committee.
Yes, sir.
And legal's having a hard time with reviewing the master leases and collateral and partial assignments. That's one of the issues he has on here under Realty Department. Legal review, take the length of time it's taken for legal review. Maybe that's solved now.
Commissioner Lee, that paradigm was from when Robin was here.
Okay.
So the catch-up is if last month we've seen a lot of documentation go through. Robert hasn't dived into, he's been more focused on the actual contracts, aspects of it, and then looking at the policy revisions.
Okay. All right. That's all I have on that. But with regarding Heather, how has the internet or the computer system IT situation affected the losing my mind here. And they have to reevaluate the homeowners, the PR unit tenants, reauthorization.
The recertification process has always been hard paper driven. It has never been put on any type of system. That was one of the scopes that has to be incorporated into the HDS, because it has yet to be computerized or as part of a database of some sort. It's always been paper driven from now, from ever since I took over. That's one of the things I noticed back in April, is that recertification process has always been that way. And that's one of the scopes that I was talking to Dwayne about, is that recertification process needs to be put into a scope so that we can computerize it and query off of that database.
So right now, that process isn't being affected by the IT?
It's not being affected. It's all paper driven.
Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Lee.
I'll leave it guess.
So Ernest, does that complete your report?
Yes.
When you're in operations, you're always on the hot seat.
Yeah, I know.
I know that too. Well, good deal. Any additional questions from the commissioners? Chairman, Commissioner Begay?
No questions.
Just a comment, madam.
Commissioner Begay?
I just like to make it known that I do support, and, you know, what the comments of Commissioner Lee and, you know, the other BOC, the concerns and issues, and I do support that, and it's been ongoing, and I'm glad that we're able to discuss it furthermore, and looking forward to those reports that were requested. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Begay. So I'm told that lunch is here. What is the wish of the board? You want to break for about a half hour, or you want to continue with Dwayne's report?
I think we could do like a 30-minute break real quick, so we can hurry up and eat, jump right back on it.
Okay. Commissioner Lee?
We have a chapter official here. I think you may want to say something. We could hear that quickly and then go to lunch.
Okay.
Would be my recommendation.
All right. We have a guest here, sir. You represent a chapter. Can you tell us, introduce yourself? I noticed you sitting behind me.
Yeah, I didn't realize you were one that's running the show.
Today,
I
yeah.
like to sit behind somebody that's running the show. I might get blamed for something. Anyway.
But you can come forward.
My name is Calvin Frank Lee. But a link to Frankie Lee's.
Okay, okay, all right.
Anyway, I'm the chapter president at Greaseway Spring, Lower Greaseway, and I ran for president there. There was one person that was running all the time. Nobody was running against him, so I thought, well, I'm going to have to change this a little bit. So I won the race. But then I've created a lot of enemies. I've been having to work to bring people back together for almost 4 years now. But during the process, I've been watching what's going on with NHA, and sort of fascinated by it. A newspaper version of things that that we learn. Some of the issues that I know about NHA, I used to be a chapter manager at Tagto chapter once, and we had NHA do some land use planning or whatever it was called, but they created a good plan, like supposedly 50 years into the future. And I thought it was a good job, but being a chapter coordinator, I couldn't really convince the leadership to adopt the plans. And so, but now I'm the president, and I can probably do a little more. At Greasewood, I don't know if they ever had a plan that was done for them, but the one that was done for Flagpole, it took into consideration a lot of things. And if it was adopted by the chapter, it would have been a good thing, because there were some areas that was pointed, separated, or designated as possible housing sites. But we don't have that at Greasewood, and we don't know exactly where would be a good place for housing. But our land use plan that we just getting done with says that there's a need for housing. And what really bothers me sometimes is when we say there's a need for housing, but people who are going to be living in those homes have to have some kind of income so they can afford to pay the rent and the utilities and, major upkeep. So that's sort of absent there. The economic conditions there are not quite where people have the money to buy homes. But I believe we have people out there that want to come back, just like me. I've been out there for a long time, and I just came back. And I'd like to see a place where we can build a home, nice home, one that is alienable, one that can be sold, so that we can create a market for housing, for homes. That's absent in the whole Navajo Nation. We need to create a market for real estate and homes. And that way we can say, this home's worth this much. If you don't have a market to support what you're saying, the value is so almost no interest in investment. So that's a problem I see. But it may be a slow process. The nation, the people that are doing the planning for housing, they always say, you can't sell this. It's yours for forever. You can't sell it. And if that really limits the valuation, it does not create any kind of a market. And so I've been in real estate, and I understand, what markets do. There's certain areas that have more action going on. There's places that won't be selling, and so you have to kind of use other data to evaluate the properties there. But in my position, I've been talking to young kids, young people, telling them about real estate, what it is, what it's all about. I talk to them about alienation, where something can be sold for money, and that creates the market. So I tell them that you got to have a market. You got to have something that can really be relied upon to evaluate homes and properties and investments. And then you can have that liquidity. You got to have liquidity. You got to show that there's liquidity. You can't say there's liquidity here because you don't have a market to support that. So the investment is not there. The reason for the investment. Investors like to see a return on their investment, and there has to be a history. So that's pretty much what I want to talk about. So what we need from NXA, if you could, is somebody that can look at the land and say, this area is good for housing, this area. Somebody that knows. We don't want to put homes where there's lot zone. Sometimes if you get the chapters to designate a housing, then give it a worse area. And that's not that doesn't do very well for, decent homes. That's, if you could come up with another thing that I want to see from the nation is a unit, an entity that goes out and talks to people and say, we need some land for housing, we need to set aside some land. And if you value your land, if you like the site that you see, and you don't want that blocked out, we honor that, your view of the area, but we can put you somewhere else where you can get better view. You can approach these people with the idea that we want to settle with you. We want to make things better for you. We're not going to say it's not your land. You got nothing to do with it. BIA says it's for grazing. That's the approach that's been out there, and people resist that. So that needs to be, the ice needs to be broken. And I've been trying to do that somewhat. But then one person can't do a big job. So, and that's what I wanted to.
Can I ask something?
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Appreciate you being here. Commissioner Lee?
Thank you, Mr. Lee, too.
There's a number of projects I see that's going through our planning process where the chapter has not, working with the tribe, completed the land withdrawal process. That's one element right there. So I mean, and also in like with Shanto, a large amount of land was withdrawn, but when we look at it, when planning looks at it, a small amount of that is really usable. And I think if you were to work with Dwayne and the ICEO and the planning department, you could better mesh your time so that you're not looking at land that you can't build upon, but working with planning to just identify what you can build upon. And then the negotiation process you're talking about for the tribe to undertake, I mean, that'd be good. I'd be in favor of that. I don't know if our planning department does anything like that already, to meet with affected landowners to discuss options on how to get the land we need to build upon, but also satisfy the value that those people have in the land that they're going to give up, for a housing project. There is a process we need for all that. But in the end, it just gets, I guess, dumped back on the chapter, who then talks to us about, and they say, can you negotiate with these people, or can you do something?
So Dwayne, where's the land or the plans that we currently paid for all the chapters and Beastwood in particular?
Well, Madam Chair, those original ones that we paid for, I believe in 2002, 2003, they're well over 18 years old. And what we use as a basis when we do a lot of chapter visits through the planning department. 4 years ago, our approach was we'll get them in regional meetings, because a lot of the individuals were finding, you were giving us grazing permits were one of the biggest things. That's where in cornfields, the permit holders that were contesting the new sites never had grazed animals, but they said they wanted a free house. They want us to upgrade that. For BIA as well, when we talked with BIA at that time, they didn't even have a permit in their name. It was their grandma's permit. So there was really, it was a conflict. So at that time, we developed regional meetings. I believe we had a meeting Tuesday with Mr. Seth Davis, District 6, bringing everybody together. So everybody, when they do a presentation, everybody has an idea what we need to do. The approach that we establish is using the general leasing is execute. If the chapter can execute, once we identify some land, use the land designation. The land designation will give the chapter the opportunity to say, okay, put everything aside, this is what we're gonna build here, and this is where the discussions of what does the chapter wanna build out? C-stores, whatever. That land designation is the driving force on there. So for your area, for Greasewood, I know one of the biggest challenges we wanted to put in 4 years ago out there was the water. Because this is relatively flat, there wasn't enough water table to get pressure out there. We have them from, I think this weekend, through, a lot of times how this is worked is do a chapter resolution to the club, the planning, submit it to us, and then we start going through those transitions meeting with you. A lot of times it's every 2-month meetings because they give everybody a task how we do this. Lately, we've been trying to bring in Navajo Nation Community Development because Navajo Nation Community Development is the chapter support. My understanding, they're going through a transition to reorganizing and programs. So if we can get the chapter resolution and look at what we're provided to our planning department, send it to me, and then we can work on that scheduling some time.
I think it would work best if we have an idea about what land is better suited for housing. And then we can go see who has a permit, who has a permit that they have to give up. They don't have to give up everything, they have to give up a portion. And we can negotiate with those people. And then if we're not going to have so much conflict, then we can go to the chapter and do resolution. To do resolution first is like starting a battle. You don't want to do that. It's better to get grassroots support. It can be done.
Sir, the resolution is for us to send it to us requesting technical assistance. Technical assistance for identifying the land. When we get the technical assistance, we set up a budget with money through HUD, and then basically look at have allowable money to be spent to do those activities. It's not a resolution saying we're going to build this house. It's a resolution from the club saying we're requesting Navajo Housing Authority's technical assistance to assist us with land planning, the housing development. Yeah, the feasibility studies of that.
Right.
So then we can say, okay, we got this from a chapter, this is what we're looking at. We set it up, set the project up with that resolution of support, and then this is the monies that we're going to be utilizing for that. So that's kind of how, it's unfortunate we're heavily regulated, and that's kind of what we request, but we're willing to do everything we can to all communities. We can't, like I always tell people, we have 5 fingers, 10 children. It's hard to help everyone in at one time, but prioritizing them, they're there to help.
Yeah. Outside the res, you can invest in a home, and if you happen to get a better job somewhere else, you can sell it, or you can have somebody take care of it and rent it out. On the res, it should be the same, but it seems like the rules tend to make you stuck in the home so that you don't have that flexibility. But they're scared of a long-term commitment, a financial commitment. And outside res, there's really no sense in fear because you can sell, you can refinance, you can do a whole lot of things real quick. But on res, it's slow, it's a slow process. So some of those things need to be worked out so that people have fear of investment in a home. So there's a whole lot more. I like to see a market develop. Somewhere along the way, some of us are going to have to start planning housing that would support that idea. And I thought maybe, if it's possible, I could do that. I'd like to see the housing for those. Good protection, good clean housing. Our preschool springs, water purification system coming in, and so we're gonna have more water. And that used to be a problem, but it should not be, activation well, but it's just an idle. So, and then we also have a new school coming in, a replacement they call it. They come to our construction. So now they're sort of building up. And there's a lot of traffic goes through there. With this group. I don't know where they go, but they come back in the evening again. So I think, well.
I think it's called Twin Arrows.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's just 20 hours. I think they work somewhere for this job. So, any other questions I can?
Well, we appreciate your coming and raising some issues that has always been the larger question of development on the Navajo Nation, on trust lands especially. You know, that's always the challenge. But receiving insight and knowing where you're from is helpful. We're here to assist. We're not the full solution, but we're part of the solution for sure. We want to be a part of
You
it.
got the money, that's the thing that really makes things work. So.
Not a whole lot of money. Got some money. You're right. You're
I
right.
heard.
I'll introduce you to our director that oversees the planning part, so we can start discussing, get some contact information. Get you that first point,
Okay.
how we do that.
And you can do.
Have a seat and enjoy a seat.
Time, so we appreciate you coming to our meeting,
Some of
and
the
I'll
older
make some room for you.
Some of the older politicians taught me that. Give them time for the meal.
Right, there you go. So we're going to go ahead and take a 30-minute break. It's 12:20, and we'll re-adjourn or meet up again at 10 till 1 o'clock. So everybody, enjoy your lunch. Mr. Chair, Commissioner Begay, 30 minutes or so?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, all right then, thank you. your team. So, where did we leave off? Mr. Lucetta, you're on for your executive report. Mr. Chair and Commissioner Begay are on the line.
Madam Chair and Chairman and Commissioners, before you have this month's November report. With what we have in terms of the Indian housing plan areas, what we have is our lot sitting at 206 this month as of December 17th. This month's expenditures is at 5.1. Cumulative, we'll be adding October, then December portion will come in later in the month, probably on the 31st. So it'll fluctuate a little. We still have some payments that are still going through process. All of our payments are being hand done, so they're taking a little, but we're still being accounted for. The other item that's the Ross program, we have not.
Question.
Mr. Lee?
What, as far as the locks goes, what are we aiming at as far as an overall balance under the 3 times language?
In terms of the 3 times language, if in October 1st, we can't have more than 214 in there. So our expenditures of the 120 that we have that we're looking at will bring that under if we keep to the grind and make sure everything pans out. Because if the notice that I sent out 2 months ago regarding the possibility of the bill for allocation will be 61 million, it'll drop about 20 million. But if we keep online with the projects that we have scheduled and keep everything moving forward, we'll be under that 3 times language. This year we're under roughly about 7 million at the start of October 1st. So it's just making sure that we pick the speed back up to what we had 2 years ago in order to those expenses.
So what's the money amount we're talking about?
The money amount we're talking about for come October 1st will be the 2020 allocations. He was going to have Navajo Housing Authority look at achieving a $100 million lock balance. And that was a discussion between Ben Lujan, not knowing the insights, and that's going to have to be confirmed through Mr. Paulson setting up a meeting with them, what was discussed, because we weren't part of the discussion.
Who from the president's office discussed that?
The Navajo Nation president and Ben Lujan. So, but that's a discussion we can go into more detail between the board. We need to have more open dialogue. So those are some of the areas that we can talk amongst the executive team.
For us to meet that commitment, we'd have to spend 120 million in projects by next year?
Roughly, probably, by next year.
An additional 120 million?
Yeah, 100, no.
On top of what we have.
Reauthorization by the law.
Staffers, I'm not sure, but it sounds like there's some misunderstanding about the current use of the 3 times language and the desire of Lujan's office to go in the agenda, in executive session.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
So moving on with the Ross program, Ross grant, we haven't, it hasn't been noticed post yet on that, who was awarded, so we're tracking that, program there within the area. Also to just a little more update in terms of the Crown Point Youth Center, and the advertisement portion is going through the procurement process. We've actually, I believe it was yesterday, the project manager went out and acquired all of the documentation to be passed on to Reba Graphics of Albuquerque for them to start preparing the documents.
and then setting up a plan room documents for that, so that's in motion there. The A&E firm, Weller, will be assisting with the pre-bid meetings and design questions. The law agreement is in the final stages of both parties agreeing to the language of the document. Mr. Silva and Navajo Nation Department of Justice have come to agreement on the wording, the language, so that's a plus for us. So that's in motion. It's been in a stalemate for a little while, but that's moving along. The annual performance has been completed, which we have today for requesting for board authorization to submit to HUD before the 30th of December. Advertisements is being placed on NHA's Facebook and in the web, the external, so those will be going through. And plus the Navajo Times and local papers that we're going to initiate the advertisement through. The other portions of under the Indian housing plan, we had a phone conversation with Shantine Lewis with the Navajo Nation Washington office regarding comments related to the HEC bill reauthorization. It was introduced to the House and Finance Committee on December 5th, so it's been submitted. I'm not sure if it's when it will be presented, but it's been introduced to the House and Finance Committee for action, and then from there it goes to the full Senate. The other part of this bill is we have members, New Mexico congressional members, Congressional Ben Lujan, Ray Lujan, and Congressman Deb Hall are supporting this reauthorization for New Mexico. So they're the ones that's championing the support to get this thing through. Part of the Indian housing plan too is NHA. We've got to receive the notification, as we talked earlier, about the 10 mobile homes. And we had Mr. Lovetto go out around the 25th, 26th to evaluate and inspect the trailers. With the recent conversation we had with Letitia, she said she was recommending us amend the Indian housing plan if we're going to use any housing money on this in terms of, but we're not. We're going to basically use some of the program monies that we've already had set up within the operational budgets for NHA that was approved for 2020. So Joe, what is being presented today. The whistleblower policy is we're still asking for some reviews or status from Luis from Coles and Brady, which will hopefully we can get all that solidified. And so the two policies out of the four here will be presented to us for presentation. The CAT reporting that we have a deadline of December 6th to provide the Office of Attorney General Helen Brown. So we're working on putting that together. Tomorrow we have a meeting scheduled to outline all the stuff. That's tri-party agreement with Navajo Housing Authority, IHS, and NHA. We're looking at those creations. How can we create that with the areas that we do instead of having silos? So that's in motion there. Now the NECA, now Engineering Construction Authority, we're meeting with Blue Nigel, who's one of the instrumental ones. We're looking at how do we bring some of the enterprises together to kind of collaborate on what projects we're doing, what areas, or how we're going to blend in to do the infrastructure, housing, development roads. What are the limitations? So discussions is how do we develop a MOA? It's something that's is going through the motions now. On Monday's meeting, we're going to have just a non-formal discussion with students on some of the activities they're doing. How is that going to roll into road improvements, housing? What are we going to plan out? Because one of the biggest things that we don't see is that what is the 5-year plan, 10-year plans, and forecast on development for utilities, development for roads. those are some of the things that need to be blended together if we're gonna roll out and provide service for the navigation. The other ongoing part of it is the meetings we had. We had on December 3rd, we had the fourth quarter report to nomination speaker's office at RDC regarding KPMG accomplishments, and so that's going to be packaged and submitted by December 26th for nomination. The other part of it is in terms of aspects of it. Some projects that 2020 waiting for funding that's going to come in around June, July. We're not going to wait for that. We have the monies that were recaptured about 6 months, 7 months ago. We're going to come back and put those monies to those projects to get them started because they're already approved. So when the application comes in July, we don't have to wait for that. We're just going to. So we have the maintenance move out repair budgets that's been established for the overall 15 units, 15,000. People are going out, instead of just going out to a conference. So those are the things that we're looking at, getting the chiefs to develop those employee development plans. Instead of us saying, well, we're going to send 10 people here, 10 people here. It has to be based on the roles and responsibilities, so maybe they'll address some of the concerns we mentioned earlier about customer service and some of the reasons of the policies. Madam Chair, that will end my report for the morning.
Thank you, Dwayne. Comments, questions from the commissioners?
Questions?
None? I do have a comment on the WH specific former benefits housing. Just for the record, I think Navajo Economic Development Division was part of this, and they should be duly noted in the record, and I think that they should be also billed for the work undertaken by WH Pacific, even without a contract. I think they're an equal players in this issue. I think we can't forget them. I think the nomination should be notified. Commissioner Lee?
The item of our current land that we can't utilize, the status on selling that land, where are we at with that, especially the properties around Twin Arrows Casino?
Well, Madam Chair, Commissioner Lee, that's the area that we gave offer to the nomination president. I brought that back up to staff there, that we need a response. If nomination doesn't want that, then we can go to the next step, looking at offering to other individuals. So that's kind of what we're going to do, a follow-up letter back to the Natural Resource Unit, and basically that's it. And but I think the approach is that I haven't In terms of following up with the nation, I think one of the things that we can do is that some of the property in Flagstaff is basically just look at putting on the market. That's the best thing, because the monies that we utilize needs to come back and go back in the coffer for other investments versus paying for that. So that's going to, in the last couple of weeks, been putting that all together, because apparently there was a booklet that was developed on some of the land. So that's the initial plan is just pulling that all back together. If now the nation's not going to respond to us, we look at offering it to other individuals, or just put it back on the market. The one thing that I'm concerned is that I don't want to use, I don't know, the brokering aspects of, because I don't want to go back to the same broker who utilized us buy it. So that's something that's going to be discussed. We can discuss that later in the day more, the best approach.
Commissioner Lee?
Good.
Okay, well, thank you, Dwayne. I don't think we have any more questions from the board.
Just one comment, Madam Chair.
Sure, Commissioner Begay.
Did we get confirmation already from the nation indicating that they have no plans for it and they're not interested? From Mr. Shabola, but we never got it in writing.
Commissioner Begay, you are correct. We haven't received nothing in writing. So as the date of the letter that we sent, we can just send notice back to them saying, or the form need to anyway.
All right, we have the financial services branch report, and we'll do that in an executive session on tab 5. Can I get a motion to accept the reports?
Motion.
Motion by